the day we buried my wife, the world felt too quiet. Not the kind of silence that comforts you, but the kind that wraps around your heart and squeezes it until it hurts. I stood by her grave, staring at the name carved into the stone. Elena. Just 6 letters. 6 letters that once meant everything to me. And now, it was all that was left. People came, hugged me, whispered the same words. She was a good woman. She loved you so much. I nodded each time, saying thank you, but inside, it didn't feel real. Her absence felt too heavy, too sharp, as if the world had lost its balance. When the priest finished the prayer, everyone began to leave. I stayed behind. The cemetery workers waited at a distance, giving me space. I looked down at her coffin one last time before the earth swallowed it, and I whispered, "I hope you know I loved you, Elena, even if I didn't always say it right." My voice cracked. For a moment, I thought I heard her laugh. Soft, gentle, the way she used to when I made bad coffee in the mornings. But it was just the wind. When I finally turned to go, I noticed something odd. Her sister, Maria, was holding a small brown envelope. She had been clutching it all through the ceremony. As I approached, she looked nervous, her eyes red and swollen. "She wanted you to have this," Maria said quietly, pressing the envelope into my hands. I frowned. "What is it?" Maria shook her head. "She told me not to open it. Only you." I looked down at it. My name, in Elena's handwriting. The letters were shaky, uneven, as if written in pain. That envelope felt heavier than the world. I didn't open it right away. Something inside me told me to wait, to breathe first, to grieve first. But even then, standing beside her grave, I knew that whatever was inside that envelope, it was going to change everything I thought I knew about my wife.
It took me almost a week before I found the courage to open the envelope. During that time, I moved through the house like a ghost, silent, careful, afraid to touch anything that still carried her scent. Our home had always been modest, but warm. Elena had a way of turning the simplest place into something alive. Curtains that smelled of lavender, picture frames that told stories, plants that somehow bloomed even when the sun forgot them. She said, "A house should feel like it's breathing with you." Back then, I never truly understood what she meant. I met Elena 17 years ago in the most ordinary way, at a grocery store. She was standing in the checkout line ahead of me, arguing gently with the cashier about an expired coupon. Her voice was soft but firm. I remember thinking, she's not angry, she's just kind, but she won't let you walk over her. When she turned around and smiled apologetically, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. We started talking a few days later. She worked at a local library part-time. I was still trying to build my small carpentry business. We were both simple people, not rich, not fancy, but she made life feel like it was enough, as if love was something you didn't chase, you just built, day by day, quietly. Our wedding was small, just close family and a few friends in a backyard. It rained that day, lightly, but she laughed through it. "Maybe the sky just wanted to bless us twice," she said, spinning under the drizzle, her white dress catching tiny drops of light. I remember standing there thinking if happiness had a face, it'd be hers. Years passed in their own gentle rhythm. We didn't have children, not because we didn't want them, but because life decided otherwise. At first it was hard on her. She'd cry at night when she thought I was asleep. I would hold her hand and whisper, "We still have each other." Eventually she stopped crying, but sometimes I could see that faraway look in her eyes, a quiet ache that never left. Elena was strong in the way quiet people are strong. She didn't talk much about herself, but she carried everyone else's weight. Her sister came to her for advice. Neighbors trusted her with secrets. Even strangers seemed drawn to her.
The mornings were the hardest. I would wake up to the quiet hum of our apartment, the sheets still warm where she had slept, and for a moment I almost expected her to be beside me, but she wasn't. Slowly I noticed how the little things began to change. The coffee she used to make with such care stayed cold on the counter. The notes she used to leave, reminders, little messages of love, became sparse, almost absent. At first I told myself it was fatigue. She had been working harder, pushing herself with her job, and I knew she wanted to keep everything together for us. But soon I started noticing the subtle distance. When I asked about her day, her answers became short. "I'm fine," she said, with a tone that didn't match the words. It wasn't that she was upset with me. She was holding something inside, and I couldn't reach it. I remember one evening, the rain falling softly against the windows. I came home early, hoping to surprise her with the dinner I had prepared. The aroma of chicken and herbs filled the apartment, but the living room was empty. I called her name gently. No answer. I moved toward the bedroom and found her sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice low, careful not to startle her. She turned her head slowly and forced a small smile. "I'm fine," she said, but there was something in her eyes, a quiet weight, a shadow that I hadn't seen before. We ate in silence that night. I tried to start a conversation about work, about family, about anything to bridge the growing gap, but she only nodded or murmured brief replies. I could feel the tension pressing between us, heavy and almost physical. I wanted to reach out, to touch her hand, to remind her that I was there, but I didn't know how. The small misunderstandings grew like cracks in glass. One afternoon, I noticed her writing a letter and then quickly hiding it in a drawer when I entered the room. I wanted to ask what it was about, but I stopped myself. It was her privacy, I told myself. I had always respected it. But the seed of worry had been planted. Another time, I found a phone message pop up on her screen. It was brief, nothing explicit, just words from someone named Daniel, a friend from work. I read it quickly. "See you later?" She glanced at me immediately and quickly swiped it away. I felt a pang in my chest, a cold suspicion I tried to push aside. Was it nothing? I told myself it was. I trusted her. I always trusted her. But the tiny hints of secrecy gnawed at me. One evening, she went to bed early, saying she had a headache. I stayed up, listening to the quiet rhythm of the apartment. I could hear her breathing, slow and even. That Saturday morning, I felt a strange mix of excitement and apprehension. I held the small basket of breakfast, imagining the smile she would give, the soft "good morning" I loved so much. I climbed the stairs to our apartment, the smell of rain lingering in the air from last night's drizzle. My heart was light, almost skipping with anticipation. When I reached her door, I hesitated. A quiet voice in my head urged me to knock softly, to announce myself gently, not wanting to startle her. And so I did, a single, gentle knock. I waited. Nothing. "Hey," I called softly,
my voice carrying the warmth I hoped she would feel. Still nothing. My chest began to tighten, a familiar ache creeping in. I put the basket down and tried the doorknob. It wasn't locked. The apartment was empty, or so it seemed. I walked slowly inside, calling her name. The living room was silent. The scent of flowers she had placed on the table days ago still lingered, but there was no trace of her presence. I moved to the bedroom and froze. There she was, standing near the window, her back to me, staring at something I couldn't see. But then I heard a voice, not hers, a man's voice, deep and calm, asking, "Who is it?" Time slowed. My breakfast basket slipped from my hands, spilling its contents onto the floor. The smell of coffee and toast mixed with the metallic sting of shock in my chest. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I only watched, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. She turned slowly, her face pale, her eyes wide. There was no warmth there, no relief at my presence, only fear and a quiet resignation. "Who's that?" I whispered, my voice trembling, though I tried to keep it calm. She didn't answer. Her silence was heavier than any words could have been. It pressed down on me, suffocating in its clarity. In that moment, the world shifted. Every memory, every shared laugh, every promise felt fragile, fragile like glass ready to shatter. I stepped back, my hands empty, my heart heavy. I didn't shout. I didn't plead. I simply said, "Take care of yourself." And then I turned and walked away. That afternoon, I wandered the city streets, the drizzle turning into a gentle rain, soaking through my coat. People passed by, oblivious to the storm inside me. I felt like a ghost, moving through life but detached from it. Every image of her, every memory replayed in my mind with a sharper edge now. The following days were a blur of quiet despair. I went to work, nodded politely, laughed when required, but inside I felt hollow. Her presence lingered everywhere, in the coffee cup.
The news came quietly, like a soft knock on a door I wasn't ready to open. My wife, Elena, had passed away. The words felt hollow when I first heard them. I sat in my chair, the morning light streaming through the blinds, and let the silence fill the room. It was strange, surreal. I had spent months in a haze, replaying her absence, but now she was truly gone. I remember driving to the hospital, my hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. My mind was numb, a foggy landscape where memories floated like mist. Every street, every corner seemed to remind me of her. I could see her walking beside me, smiling, laughing softly at something I had said. But when I looked around, there was no one there. At the hospital, the nurse led me to a small room. Her belongings were neatly stacked on a table. A few dresses, a pair of worn slippers, her favorite scarf folded carefully. And then, there it was. An envelope, unsealed, with my name written in her hand. I sat down slowly, my fingers trembling as I picked it up. The paper felt heavier than I expected, weighted with the truth she had kept hidden from me all those years. I unfolded it, and her words spilled onto the page, honest and unguarded. She wrote about her fears, the secrets she had carried, and the moments she had lied, not out of malice, but from fear, insecurity, and the weight of expectations. She explained, with quiet regret, the choices she had made, the people she had turned to, the ways she had faltered. Each line was like a small key,
unlocking the questions I had spent so long asking myself. I read slowly, letting each sentence sink in. There was no anger in her words, only an attempt to explain herself, to make sense of a life she could no longer control. And in that room, surrounded by her quiet belongings, I finally understood. I realized the woman I had loved wasn't perfect. She had flaws, fears, and regrets just like me. But she had loved me in her way, and that love had been real, even if incomplete. My anger, my confusion, the endless nights of questioning, they melted slowly into something else. Understanding. Compassion. A gentle, aching sorrow. Her diary revealed things I had never suspected. Small letters tucked between pages, photographs she had hidden.
After that day, life felt different. The apartment was quieter, yes, but not empty in the way it had been before. It was full of memories, small traces of her presence that didn't hurt anymore. They comforted me. I would pass by her scarf on the chair or glance at a photograph on the shelf, and instead of pain, I felt gratitude. Gratitude for the time we had, for the love we shared, and for the lessons she had left behind. I started waking up earlier, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. The mornings became a space of reflection, a time to breathe, to remember, and to let go. I made coffee, the steam curling into the soft light that filtered through the window. I would sit at the table, the quiet hum of the city outside my window, and just exist. I realized that peace wasn't something sudden or dramatic. It was in the small moments, the gentle rhythm of life moving forward. Friends began visiting again. Some had been hesitant, unsure how to support me, but they returned, quietly and without pressure. We would sit together in the evenings, talking about trivial things, sharing small laughs, and in those moments I noticed a subtle shift inside me. I was present, I was breathing, I was living, not just surviving. Work became more than a distraction. I poured myself into projects, and for the first time, I didn't feel restless while doing so. My creativity returned slowly, like a river thawing in spring. I wrote letters, not to her, not to the past, but to myself. Little notes about gratitude, about reflection, about life's strange beauty even after heartbreak. These writings became my anchor, a way to process the depth of emotions I had carried for so long. Sometimes, when the evenings were quiet, I would walk to the river near my apartment. The water was calm, reflecting the last traces of sunlight, and I would watch it ripple slowly, moving forward without hesitation. And I understood then that I too could move forward. I could carry her memory without being weighed down by her absence. I could hold on to love without letting it trap me in the past. Months passed, and the sharp edges of grief softened. I still missed her, of course, in ways that made my chest ache. But the pain was no longer a prison. It was a gentle reminder of what had been, a quiet companion that taught me resilience. And in that space, I found a new understanding of love, that it isn't ownership or perfection. It is presence, sincerity, and the courage to let go when necessary. I began noticing life again, the smell of fresh bread in the morning, the sunlight glinting on the leaves outside my window, the laughter of children on the street. Even now, when I think back on all that happened, I don't feel bitterness. Not really. I feel a quiet understanding, like the kind that settles after a long storm. Life had taken something from me, yes, but it had also given me something in return. The ability to see love, loss, and forgiveness clearly, without letting pain rule my heart. I've learned that grief doesn't have a schedule. It doesn't demand to be noticed on a calendar or measured in days. It comes and goes in waves, sometimes gentle, sometimes sharp. but each wave leaves a little more clarity behind. And in that clarity, I discovered something important. Peace isn't something you wait for. It's something you choose. Every day, you decide to let go of what hurts you and to hold on to what teaches you. I still think about her sometimes, not with longing, not with anger, but with recognition of what we shared. I remember her laugh, the way she tilted her head when she was thinking, the quiet moments we spent without words. Those memories no longer hurt. They remind me that love is never wasted, even when it doesn't last forever. Life has moved on. I wake up in the mornings with a calm heart. I notice the little things, sunlight spilling across the floor, the scent of fresh coffee, the quiet rhythm of the city outside my window. I smile without effort. I connect with friends and family with openness and warmth. I take time to care for myself in ways I didn't before. And slowly, without fanfare, I feel whole again. What she taught me wasn't in the mistakes she made or the secrets she kept. It was in how I responded.